Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, wherever you are at. I am Tina Swithin, and I have been re recording Coffee with Tina, which we do on Instagram and TikTok. For those of you who do not have social media, and I understand why. So, welcome to our YouTube version. I am the author of Divorcing a Narcissist, founder of One Mom's Battle, and CEO of the High Conflict Divorce Coach Certification Program. With that said, I am not an attorney and I am not qualified to give you legal advice. Always consult with your own attorney prior to making any changes to your case or taking any new direction. We are very much a community of survivors who come together and talk about divorcing a narcissist or child custody issues when a narcissist is involved. So today we have a topic that is on the hearts of many due to financial abuse. Many of us start out representing ourselves in family court or are forced to do this at some part of our journey. So the question is, what advice would you give someone who is interested in going pro se or pro per, basically self-represented in family court, or is forced into this due to financial hardship? So many of us are unable to afford legal representation and end up or begin in pro se. I have so many people tell me how brave I am for doing this, but the reality is, like so many of you, I just didn't have a choice. My very first set of court declarations were done back in 2009 from a laptop computer propped in the windowsill of my local women's shelter. And it was in the windowsill because I was desperate to tap into a neighboring Wi-Fi. It was a really dark, humbling few days, and I didn't have a great experience at my local women's shelter in general. However, I was afraid for my life. And so if presented with the opportunity to do it again, I would still go that path. My ex-husband at the time had truly set his mask down. He left 3 very disturbing voicemails on my phone. And while, I didn't know what he was capable of. He had never physically assaulted me, but I truly did fear for my life in that moment. And if you have not read my book, it's called Divorcing a Narcissist, One Mom's Battle. That will tell you my whole story. The reality is all of us know what would have happened had I spoke my truth to family court professionals, that I was in fear for my life. I would have been marked as unstable, hysterical, paranoid, all of those things. So my initial court filings was done in a state of absolute terror, chaos, trauma, and my little girls were only 2 and 4 years old at the time. I felt like I was being hit from every single angle. And so for people who see me now and believe that, I was just this amazing warrior mom who went in there and kicked butt and protected my children in one fell swoop, absolutely not. Give yourself a lot of grace, because this is just not an easy journey. And that's not how it happened for me. In fact, the first 2 years of my battle was riddled with so many mistakes. There isn't a manual that goes along with this journey, especially for those in pro se. So I utilized many resources to learn how to navigate the system during my custody battle, and I'm happy to share some of those with you today. And let's get started. So my local courthouse, many courthouses offer services of, here in my area, we call it a family law facilitator. This person can guide you through the paperwork process along with the filing guidelines. All of that can be really confusing when you're already overwhelmed. And, they cannot give you legal advice, but they can help you to understand the procedural and logistical things related to paperwork, filing deadlines, and the process in general. Um, there are a lot of communities, a community center, where divorce workshops are offered, usually once a month or every couple of months for a nominal donation. So start looking around in your area to find out if there's anything similar. And I was able to meet with local attorneys for 30 minutes at a time. Several of them assisted me with the paperwork process or gave general legal advice. And I think I paid a $20 donation. That was all I could afford at the time. So even if it's someone to help read over the paperwork, maybe offer tips on how to structure things, what to say, what not to say, suggestions on how to reword something. For me, that experience was really invaluable. And then, I know that churches and congregations can be a touchy subject for many because that is part of the abuse you suffered. Maybe you were told, just smile a little bit bigger, be a little bit thinner, be a little bit more kind, and you won't be abused. I hope and pray that that is not the experience that you have with your church. Check in with different churches in your area to see if they have resources for single parents. I've heard different stories about church members who happen to be attorneys or retired attorneys who helped at a reduced rate. Many churches have programs for single or divorcing parents for support, and this can be really helpful to connect with others in your area, even if it's just to learn about the local system. But see what type of services that they offer. There was a point in my, first couple of years where I struggled to feed my children due to financial abuse. And our church was somewhere, well, I started going to the church. I have been pretty much an atheist or agnostic most of my life. And my church was a whole new experience for me post separation. And they helped feed my kids and made sure we had Christmas gifts. And so, those memories, I'm very grateful that they were there to help lift me up during those times. Another resource, your local women's shelter. I know my local women's shelter receives grant money to assist those who are unable to hire an attorney, and some women's shelters or domestic violence centers even have attorneys on staff. So check in with them to see what type of resources may be available. And I know that this next part, my experience and recommendation is echoed by so many paralegals. Try to find a paralegal who can help you at a greatly reduced rate. It's much cheaper than an attorney. And for me, one of my obstacles, I really struggled with the court paperwork. I truly have PTSD from court paperwork and declarations. Towards the end of my journey, I started utilizing the services of a paralegal, and I really wish this would have been on my radar from the very beginning. Many areas have local paralegal associations, so check in with them to find someone who specializes in family law. Another great place to find a paralegal is Upwork or websites like Upwork, where you can connect with an independent contractor. You can find everything from graphic design to paralegals. So see if there's anyone on there, a really good one who understands family court, who is in your state, who could potentially look up case law to help you further build your case. Another great resource is limited scope attorneys. I firmly believe that everyone who's in pro se should have a limited scope attorney. And basically they're not representing you, but they're in the background. Maybe money is really tight and you don't use them very often, but if something were to go sideways with your case, having an attorney in the background who knows the basics of your situation can really be a lifesaver. And I remember it was 2011 and I was preparing for a 2-day trial. I had no idea what I was doing. And I had been working with a limited scope attorney and his wife, who was also a paralegal. And I would lean on them if I did not understand something for trial prep, if I needed an extra set of eyes to read over what I had prepared. And I'll give you an example. There was one time when I was in court and I was thrown a curveball. Did not see that coming. We all know this is such an unpredictable journey, but that particular attorney happened to be in the courtroom that day on another case, and he stood up and helped me. You know, I am forever grateful. There were so many angels on my path, and he was one of them, and I'm grateful for his help. Another thing, understanding court documents. Most courts have online resources for family court, and I find that everything is a little bit less intimidating if I familiarize myself with the actual court documents. So I used to keep a really tiny binder, and that was filled with every blank court document from the family court website. And then on each document, I would have Post-it notes, and on those Post-it notes, I would notate the requirements for each form, how many copies were needed, who needed to be served, how they needed to be served, along with filing and response deadlines. I would just keep it all right there so I could quickly reference it. Another option, local law schools. If there is a law school within a few hours of you, reach out to see if they have any programs you could take advantage of. Maybe they have students who can assist with your case or any part of your case, even trying to find case law that could help in your specific situation. I cannot emphasize the importance of this next piece of advice. Learn your local court system. Most courts are open to the public. There are a few states, I know Florida is typically closed, but I know there are ways around it. There's Court Watch, I believe it's called Facts in Florida, FACTS, Facts. I know there's Court Watch groups that are forming, have formed, with some fellow advocates that I work with. We have informal ones where someone will say, jump onto this Zoom, website right now. And I know today there was one, I wasn't able to attend, but they had 30 people online watching. So you can do that. Go to the website for your courthouse, check to see if they have online court streamed through Zoom or YouTube or another platform. But if it's in person and you're able to, go spend a day sitting in the courtroom. I know it's not how you want to spend your day off, but it is the most valuable education that you will receive. And I used to do it. There was a point where I was working 3 jobs. I had my children probably 80% of the time. And even if I had a 2-hour window in my day, that's where you would find me. So I truly believe a big part of the reason why I've been successful in protecting my children is because I immersed myself in the local system and I learned it like the back of my hand. Pay special attention to the procedures and strategies used by attorneys. You'll get to know which attorneys the judge likes and which ones the judge does not like. And it's a great way to desensitize yourself to the process, which really helps to lower your anxiety. Study cases when you're sitting in court, and if there's a case that is very familiar to yours, write down the information, the last names, the case number. If there's a court computer, go look it up, study that case, look at what they've filed, what the attorney says in declarations. This is one area where I think perjury is allowed. Copy it. See, use it, that language. Familiarize yourself with the judge who's presiding over your case. Many times you're going to discover the judge's likes and dislikes, and the experience will help you to mentally prepare for when it's your turn to walk into that courtroom. And you can research your judge online. There's a website called therobingroom.com. So it's like a judge's robe, robingroom.com, therobingroom.com. I think reviews in general, when we're looking up attorneys or family court professionals, I don't get caught up in one specific review. We don't know the background of that case, what happened, but I do look for patterns and trends and similar threads that run through all of them. If you find a thread that runs through all of them, that this judge hates moms or is more favorable towards moms, that gives you a lot of insight into what you're walking into. Another great place to find information about your judge, your therapist. If she's had other clients who are in front of that judge, local divorce support groups, One Mom's Battle state chapters, great place to start. Through talking to other people in my community, I had learned that my judge was Catholic. And at the same time, I learned that our judge really disliked alcohol abuse. And in our case, my ex-husband had a major drinking problem and a history of alcohol-related arrests. So the takeaway, judges are human. And yes, they are supposed to remain, unbiased, but they're not. Their personal beliefs do carry over. So learn as much as you can about the judge presiding over your case. Really important. And you never know what you're also going to find on social media. If you are on social media, do a deep dive, start looking at family court professionals, attorneys. You can discover a lot of information by becoming a social media or internet sleuth. Most of them don't go by their names, but you go down a couple of rabbit holes looking at different professionals and you can connect some dots. Another thing, when you are observing these court cases, keep a running list of all of the players in your local system. Attorneys, minors counsel, evaluators, co-parenting therapists. Take notes on all of them. And then I wanted to share a couple of pointers and tips that came from our social media channels. Our group members shared from their own personal experience some things that they found to be helpful on this topic. The first one is learn civil procedure and the rules of evidence in your state. Focus on the best interest factors for your state. Every state has a set of best interest factors. So download those, really use those to build your case. The next comment that came in, concise, well-written documents, minimal words, working towards win-win solutions, and always place your child's best interest at the heart of every action. Don't get caught up in the fight, rise above it. The next one says, as a pro se litigant, the advice that I would give is to come in strong. Read your local state laws for dissolution of marriage and allocation of parental responsibilities and decision making. Study it through and through. And then the next one says, when filing your response or motions, cite those laws and then clearly state, oh, this was connected to the one I just read. Sorry, that was confusing. So she goes on to say, when filing your response or motions, cite those laws and then clearly state how the other party is not able to perform X, Y, and Z according to those local laws. Now be able to place the children's, or they're not able to place the children's needs above their own. Sorry, it's hard reading and talking at the same time. It's not hard reading and talking at the same time. You know what I mean. She goes on to say, then attach any exhibits that you may have in the form of text messages, emails, doctor's reports, school records, pictures, criminal background if applicable, and demand the relief you are seeking by invoking local laws. Next one says, read applicable case laws from your local Supreme Court and appellate courts. Cite those along with the local laws to strengthen your arguments of why the other party shouldn't have A, B, and C in the best interest of the children. Another one goes on to say, kind of piggybacking on what I said about paralegals earlier, she says, I hired my own paralegal. She was thrilled to make twice what the firm pays her and got more done for me than $18,000 in attorney fees. She cost me around $1,200. If you can utilize legal aid and look at how court documents are drawn up, that can help. We have a paralegal at a help desk at our courthouse who cannot advise, but makes sure you know what to do and when to do it. So thank you for those of you who submitted information on this topic. There are some additional things to keep in mind. Below all of this is really radical acceptance, managing our expectations, and the foundation of the family court system is something I'm going to touch on before we close off for the day. So, Family Court 101, the harsh reality is that the judge doesn't know either of you. And family court is made up of he said, she said, she said, she said, he said, whatever it is, and hearsay. So it takes a while for the judge to see the realities of the situation. Don't go in there thinking, but I know who I am, and the judge has to absolutely see how bad this other person is. When I watch family court cases and I don't know either party, sometimes I leave there scratching my head going, I don't know what I would have ruled if I were in the judge's shoes. So put yourself in the judge's shoes. They don't know either party. You know who you are, and you know who the other person is, but the judge, it can take a while. Which leads me to an important topic. I believe there's something, I refer to it as the family court grace period. And that can range anywhere from a year to 2, sometimes 3 years. And essentially, they allow for a certain level of conflict during this initial grace period. And they even seem to excuse really poor behavior. A parent with a pulse is a great parent in the eyes of the court. That's what I often say. They recognize that you both hate each other or you wouldn't be there, but they expect after a year or 2, the conflict will settle down and you will both move forward. Once that grace period is up for the judge and you're still in their courtroom, that's when they start leaning in a little bit closer and paying more attention. Where is this a 2-party conflict? We all know that it only takes one person to create a high conflict situation. And then another important thing to remember, and it's a painful one, we have a court system that has an extreme victim blaming mentality. Most judges are sitting back thinking, you chose to have children with this person or to marry this person. And our own attorneys verbalize that to us, and it's painful and it's wrong. Some judges verbalize this in open court. Others are just thinking it. But regardless of whether or not they verbalize it, I would venture to say that most have that belief. So, and then one more tip before we close for the day. If accusations are being made or seeds are being planted, let's say you're being accused of being a gatekeeper or too enmeshed with your child. We know that motherly instincts to protect our children are really praised in every society. Yet in the family court system, it's weaponized against us. So if I knew that those seeds were being planted and accusations were being made, I would be preemptively creating declarations or at least statements on a Word document, how I would respond to those if they do appear in a court document. So I used to draft responses or declarations ahead of the filing when I wasn't triggered. Concise, articulate, factual, because we all know it can be really triggering to be served. And once that happens, it derails us and we aren't thinking clearly or strategically. So if you can write out responses in advance, and I do caution you, it's a fine line. You don't want to go down the what if path, because all that is a bunch of anxiety. So it's being realistic and, that this is in the pipeline, but not going too far down that path of being consumed by the fear of the unknowns. And you know yourself best. So if you do start to feel consumed, press pause, step away from this stuff, and go back when you're feeling more centered. So I hope you have pulled some helpful nuggets today. If you need further support, couple of things that I would recommend: the OMB state chapters. Just go to ombchapters.com. We do have one for individuals in pro se. It's not super active, and I would love to change that, but connect with others in your area through the state chapters. Our divorce coaches. I run an 8-week training program to basically download every bit of information that I have learned in the past 13 years into these individuals. And they are a wealth of information, not only from what they've learned in the course, but because of their own personal experiences in family court. Connect with them by going to myhighconflictdivorcecoach.com. And even if there isn't one in your state yet, they're trained to help anyone regardless of where you are. And then finally, we do offer a bunch of online courses in different topics, which will take you even deeper into things like communication, documentation. 99% of my documentation has never seen the light of day. It's never been seen by anyone, but that 1%, maybe 2%, is what helped me to protect my children. And so if you don't have a documentation system that's working for you, just go to onemomsbattle.com, click online courses, and we have lots of different things. Strategic communication. If you have to prepare for mediation, we will help you do that through the courses. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day, and remember to connect with others who are going through this. There is power in numbers, and I'm grateful for the collective wisdom of everyone who comes together. Leave comments below, and if you have additional advice on this topic or any other topic, leave comments below and let us know, because I know those watching would be grateful. Take care.